Hello and welcome to the official 7-day documentation video of me trying to improve my communication because I realised that my YouTube videos have become a bit stagnant. I've been using the same body language. I don't really have much variation in my tonality, I don't personally think, and I want to improve my storytelling technique because communication is the most powerful skill you can have as an individual, because without it, near enough, you are completely powerless. Even if you're just somebody who sits in their room all day and types to AI and you have an AI business, you've still got to be able to communicate effectively so that AI can understand you. So with that being said, I'm starting on day 2 today because day 1 I just did the introduction on a reel. And today we're going to be focusing on understanding how professional business owners speak and tell stories by watching a podcast, and then also working on tonality, because I do recognise that I sound very monotone when I am explaining something. And I often get in the trap of explaining too much context behind certain points, and that is very boring to my brain. So then I just stay monotone and it's not very exciting to watch. So we're going to try and improve that today. And this process is mainly going to be documented through the reels each day of the 7 days. But I'm going to be doing all the resources through this long form video, so you can go try some of the exercises I'm doing and hopefully improve your communication as well. So let's get into day 2. Alright, so I've just watched this video right here, and the major point that I think is going to help my tonality is truly believing deep down in your heart what you are saying is true. And although I've spent years watching content and I do understand a lot of what I'm talking about, I don't fully understand how it's going to circle back round to the original point I made when explaining longer things. So how can we solve this? Alex mentioned that you can never ever have the perfect outcome or the product of a situation, but you can always have the perfect intentions in your mindset. And to apply this to content, I think the best mindset I can have is that my abundance of authenticity and my lack of trying to upsell people in the future is going to be my main reason why people watch my raw vlogs rather than hyper-edited other people's content. So you've got to consciously think why people would choose you over the competition and the other options available, and how you have to convince them that you are their best shot at achieving their goal. So the daily protocol I'm going to go through is film a 5 to 10 minute video on my phone talking about a random topic that AI will generate for me. This will help me with expressing my tonality, thinking off the top of my head, and overall articulating my thoughts in a more concise way. I'm also going to be catching up on my email newsletter that I get 3 times a week with a random word that I can help bring into my everyday vocabulary and vernacular. Yeah, just checking if that was the right word. So I'm not going to bore you with the 5 to 10 minute videos, but I'm going to instead try and see what methods work best, how you can implement them to accelerate your own learning, and then we'll also still got the podcast to watch and understand the deep psychology of how Alex Hormozy, again, because I think he's a very good communicator and philosopher, and I think that it'd be really good to understand rather than a professional public speaker, but somebody that has to communicate on a more in-depth level to specific members of a team rather than just a broad audience. I think that'd be great to start, and then we can start to go into the public speaker realm later in the week. Hello and welcome to day 3. So today I'm going to be focusing on body language because that is a major way of communicating what you're trying to feel. And I think it needs a lot of work. And what better person to learn this from than Ving Jiang. So I'm just going to be basically watching a load of tutorials, and then I'm going to try and find some famous speeches that I can mime to and create my own body language based on different delivery styles and different tonalities that they are using based on what we learned yesterday with tonality. So I'll update you when I've watched all the tutorials and I'm actually doing the challenge of the day. So I kind of got sidetracked and filmed the reel and then forgot to film what I actually learned from this. So the main 3 videos I watched are above, and all the resources that I have watched and learned from will be in a Notion page in the link in the description. And the main thing I realised was that a monotone voice comes from a monotone body. So if you are just sitting still, you'll have a monotone voice, whereas if you're excited a bit more, you naturally want to flow better with your words, I guess. And that's why my voice went monotone when I was explaining something, because all of my energy was going to my brain to think, is this sounding right? Am I justifying this enough? Rather than feeling the words that I was saying, like my other sentences had. Now, there are 3 aspects of how we present ourselves to the outside world, or to others, or to objects like the camera. And that is how we look, how we feel, and how we sound. Most people have the greatest difficulty with how they feel because they think that's the most important. and it is the overriding factor. It does play a big part, the largest part, on your communication to others and how well you can put yourself across. And that's because if we don't feel a certain way, we aren't able to express ourselves a certain way, unless you forget about the feelings and focus purely on how you are viewed by others. Now, this isn't a narcissistic way to think of things, but if you focus on how you are viewed and how you sound to others based on your body language and your tonality, often you'll forget about your feelings and focus more on what the other person is receiving on the other end. This is why motivational speakers are so good, is because it's not all about them. It's about how much value you can give to the audience in a short space of time to help change their lives. So next time you feel nervous, think about how you sound and how you are viewed based on your body language. And that should shut your brain off and help you flow better when talking. That was day 3, and day 4 is going to be talking about lexicon and the complexity of words that we use. Alright, so today is day 4 of this challenge, and today I watched this video alone. Because today we're focusing on lexicon, or our everyday vocabulary that we use in communication. Now obviously you can't learn a framework to suddenly get better at communicating. What I thought was important is understanding why we think and write at greater depths than we can articulate with our vocabulary and just verbally in general. So there are 2 main ways that you can be bad at verbally communicating, and that is either rambling way too much or forgetting what to say. And they both come from the same root problem, which is an overanalyzing brain. This is because we overdevelop an internal editor, which makes it harder for us to talk when on demand. Now, why do you think we write and think better than we can articulate verbally? And that's because, well, for writing or brainstorming in our head, we have a lot of time and we can generally edit what we're thinking on the go. Whereas when we're talking, we have to have a finished, polished sentence before we even start opening our mouth. And that is why communication, especially initially, either to camera or in high stressful events, becomes hard compared to when you're just talking to a friend or talking casually. Because there is zero weight on the words you are saying in a casual setting, whereas if you're in a more professional setting, they have to mean something more, so we generally overanalyze more and therefore have a higher chance of making blunders. So how do we stop overthinking? The main theory that comes from that video is the fact that we cannot expect to articulate all our internal thoughts, all of the emotions that we feel, all the experiences that we've had to do with that topic into a couple of sentences where the recipient will understand, whether that be the online audience or people in a room or whatever. So that then naturally takes a lot of weight off the words you're saying, because you'll never be able to get across your true intentions. Even with writing, it is very, very hard to do so coherently to a point where the other person can understand fully what you're trying to get to. So with this realization, you've got to figure out that it is going to be hard to get your point across, and therefore it doesn't matter that much if you don't have the level of clarity yet, because practice is important. So for the exercises that were mentioned in that video, there were 2 different things. First of all, when you're talking to a camera or talking to a person or a crowd, don't imagine that they're there. Don't treat them as individuals that you've got to try and make them understand everything that you're saying, but think of them as a whole and think of it as if they are your internal monologue. Not to a point where you just ramble, but desensitize the importance that they have and focus on being present in the moment to articulate your thoughts. The second exercise is get AI to ask you questions from your social media profiles or from the information it already has on your topics of interest. And then set a 1-minute timer, and if you take a single pause in that 1 minute, you have to stop and repeat the exercise and explain what you're trying to say all over again. I personally haven't started this yet, but I think this is going to be a very, very good thing to do. And I did do a variation of this where I would get AI, or I would just sometimes think about myself. Think of a topic that I'm interested in, I have a bit to say on it, or even if I'm experiencing a new topic and I'm actively learning some new things. So I was learning a lot about Notion earlier in the year and databases and that kind of thing. So I would get myself to explain all the things I'd learned in Notion databases as if I was explaining it to somebody who had no clue. And that can be very, very powerful. So try these exercises, see how it goes, and you should be able to more coherently express yourself because you're not putting so much weight on the words that you're saying, and instead you're trying to get through an emotion rather than a complex framework of ideas across to somebody that isn't quite as experienced as you. Alright, so it's day 6 of the challenge, and I forgot to film yesterday, and I'm not going to film tomorrow. I just wanted to say that overall, the challenge has been very positive for me because I've watched very minimal content. I've made sure that I think I've only watched about 4 to 5 YouTube videos in total, and that has been very important, even though I didn't even know what the YouTube video is going to be about because I've never watched them before. It's about recognising what is good content to watch, watching as little as you possibly can, and then extracting as much as you can from that content. Because me personally, I've got so wrapped up in watching as much content as I possibly can because I think it's learning and I'm collecting data and collecting experience from other people, and it's been a total waste of time. The most amount of progress I've seen, just said that's not good. Most amount of progress I've seen is been in this 7-day challenge, and that's because I've taken action and I've proved to myself that practice is way more important than knowledge. Admittedly, like I think I've said before, or in a reel actually, anything other than base knowledge, you're just wasting your time with, and because most people do not have the same experiences as you, and you've got to create your own experiences and learn from the specifics that are in your situation. So feel free, once again, to click the link in the description for the Notion page that is public, where you can watch some of these videos. That's literally just it, just links to the videos. And also take notes on every single thing you watch that is useful, because without notes you're likely to forget, and without notes you won't know what specific points that were relevant to that video to look back on if you look back on your notes like I do. I'll just sometimes go onto my Notion database and look through some old notes that I've written about YouTube videos I've watched in the past, and they could be 2-hour-long videos, and I'll just read through maybe 1 or 2 spaced out Word documents worth of writing, and that refreshes my memory on the lessons I learned, and then I can implement the lesson again for a YouTube video I watched years back. So always remember to make notes and take action straight away, and if you can't take action straight away, always make sure to add a daily non-negotiable that's a very, very small task. So if you're trying to increase your lexicon, just sign up to 2 or 3 newsletters that give you a word a day to learn, and that should help you stay accountable. I haven't really got anything else to add to this documentary. Just go out there and try your best to improve in all realms of human endeavour, because life is very short and you can't waste it doing unnecessary things. Thank you very much for watching. You can check out all of the reels on my channel, and they'll be linked below as well. Other than that, stay learning and stay applying what you learn as well. Have a great rest of your day.